dispensed the laws and saw that they were observed. The heralds themselves were nearly incapable of becoming corrupted or potential abusers of their temporal power. The chosen were by nature remarkably self-sacrificing. Their training only reinforced this. They had to be. There was a better than even chance that a herald would die in the line of duty. But they were human for all of that, mostly young, mostly living on the edge of danger. So it was inevitable that outside of their duty they tended to be a bit hedonistic and anything but chaste. And only seldom did a herald form a tie beyond that of brotherhood and the pleasures of the moment, perhaps because the bond of brotherhood was so very strong, and because the herald-companion bond left little room for any other permanent ties. For the most part, few of the common or noble folk held this against them, knowing that no matter how wanton a herald might be on leave, the moment he donned his snowy uniform, he was another creature altogether. For a herald in whites was a herald on duty, and a herald on duty had no time for anything outside of that duty, least of all the frivolity of his own pleasures. Still, there were those who held other opinions, some of them in high places. Laws laid down by the first king decreed that the monarch himself must also be a herald. Thus it was ensured that the ruler Valdemar could never be the kind of tyrant who had caused the founders to flee their own homes. Second in importance to the monarch was the herald known as the king's or queen's own, chosen by a special companion, one that never seemed to age, though it was possible to kill him, and was always a stallion. The queen's own held the special position of confidant and most trusted friend and advisor to the ruler. Thus the monarchs of Valdemar were assured that they would always have at least one person about them who could be trusted and counted on at all times. This tended to make for stable and confident rulers, and thus a stable and dependable government. For generations, it seemed that King Valdemar had planned his government perfectly. But the best-laid plans are still capable of being circumvented by accident or chance. In the reign of King Sendar, the kingdom of Scarcely, that bordered Valdemar to the southeast, hired a nomadic nation of mercenaries to attack Valdemar. In the ensuing war, Sendar was killed, and his daughter, Selene, assumed the throne, herself having only recently completed her herald's training. The queen's own, an aged herald called Talia, was frequently confused and embarrassed at having to advise a young, headstrong, and attractive female. As a result, Selene made an ill-advised marriage, one that nearly cost her both her throne and her life. The issue of that marriage, the heir presumptive, was a female child whom Selene called Elspeth. Elspeth came under the influence of the nurse Selene's husband had brought from his own land, and became an intractable, spoiled brat. It became obvious that if things went on as they were tending, the girl would never be chosen, and thus could never inherit. This would leave Selene with two choices: marry again with the attendant risks, and attempt to produce another, more suitable heir, or declare someone already chosen and with the proper bloodline to be heir, or, somehow, salvage the heir presumptive. Talia had a plan, one that it seemed had a good chance of success, which involved sending the child into fosterage in a remote province, away from the influence of the nurse and court, with those who could be counted upon to take no nonsense from her. Then Talia was murdered, throwing the situation into confusion again. His companion, Roland, chose a new queen's own, but instead of picking an adult or someone already a full herald, chose an adolescent girl named Talia. Talia was of Holderkin, a puritanical border group which did its best to discourage knowledge of outsiders. Talia had no idea what it meant to have a herald's companion accost her and then, apparently, carry her off. Among her people, females held very subordinate positions, and nonconformity was punished immediately and harshly. And since Talia